Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Ishvaro Guratmeti Murti Beda Vibhagine Vyomavadvyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Sadgurum Pranatosmham. Shri Krishna Govinda. So the text is Panchadasi. Panchadasi means 15 chapters. It's divided into 3 sections. The first section, first 5 chapters, deals with existence. The second 6 deals with consciousness, and the third section is 5 chapters on the topic of bliss, anandam. So the self, consciousness, awareness, is sat, existence, chit, consciousness, and bliss, anandam. So it's going to be a careful and rather sophisticated analysis of these 3 aspects of the self. I say aspects because the self has no aspects. Self is non-dual consciousness. But we're going to look at it from these 3 points of view. From the point of view of existence, what is the material world, from the point of view of consciousness, that is, knowledge, conscious beings, and from the point of view of bliss, or happiness, ananda. This is a very, it's a long text. It's probably, it's one of my favorite texts. It's up there with the Bhagavad Gita. And this text, this study, requires a certain amount of preparation on your part. I assume that if you're here, you're probably reasonably well prepared. If you have difficulty understanding something, it's not because of the text. The text is pretty clear. And I'm able to simplify it so to make it quite understandable. If you have a hard time understanding, it's because there's some lack of qualification in your mind. And therefore you need to purify your mind a little. And once you've purified your mind, the teaching will make sense to you. We're not going to talk about yoga. Well, we're going to talk about it, but not in the sense of purifying the mind. Although Jnana Yoga, which is the Vedanta, it does purify the mind. There are some verses on mental purification here, but not many. Because this is basically just an analysis, careful analysis of experience. Don't think that Vedanta is some kind of intellectual philosophy, because it's not an intellectual philosophy. It's not, a philosophy is the ideas, the beliefs and opinions, the contentions of various an individual or various individuals like Aristotle or Plato or Kant or Descartes. These were individual people who had ideas and explored their ideas and came up with a philosophical system. Vedanta is not a philosophical system. It's a revealed means of knowledge that involves a careful analysis of experience. If you, science, what we call material science. That's an investigation and an analysis of the material world. We have an investigation of the material world. In fact, the first 5 chapters are an analysis of matter, oddly enough. So we have a cosmology, explaining the cosmos, what it is. And we have a psychology also. So we're not just limited to the study of matter. We're also investigate and study the mind. The mind is called jiva, the living beings or the conscious beings. The universe is made up of matter, and it's made up of conscious beings. And it's also made up of what? And it's all made up of pure consciousness. So jiva means the consciousness that you think you are the person. Jagat means the world, the material world in which you exist. And Ishvara means the consciousness that illumines the jiva and the world. And Vedanta analyzes these directly. It gives you tools so that you can investigate in your own experience to see whether or not what the conclusions of Vedanta are true or not. So we're not asking you to believe anything, okay? Please don't think this is a matter of belief or an opinion. Don't try to memorize this. Okay? Try to understand it. Obviously, memory's good, but you don't want to go away thinking you know Vedanta. You want to go away from this thinking you know yourself, because the topic is yourself. The topic is not Vedanta. Vedanta is a means whereby we investigate ourselves to discover the truth of who we are. So, for this to work, you need to be able to listen without prejudice, without judgments. You can make your judgments later once you've heard. You will, particularly spiritual people. They have lots of ideas about what reality is and who they are. In fact, it's easier for me to teach a man on the street, in a way, because that man has no ideas. He hasn't read a lot of spiritual books, gone on the internet and listened to all these people claiming to be enlightened and so forth and so on. And so it's difficult because, and this will be challenging for some of you new people. It's going to be challenging because Vedanta, the idea that we're teaching here, the basic idea, is completely contrary or opposite to what you think you are and what you think reality is. If you've gathered your knowledge about the world and about yourself through your senses, through your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin, and analyze that knowledge that you've gotten from your experience in your own mind based upon the experiences that you had, your knowledge will not be knowledge. There may be a little bit of knowledge, but the knowledge that you get will be prejudiced. It won't be unbiased. It won't be clear scientific knowledge. But you believe that it is, because you worked so hard. You lived so hard, and you worked so hard to understand yourself and the world. But you cannot study yourself objectively. That's the problem. You're very biased and prejudiced about yourself. You either think you're quite wonderful or you think you're quite awful. And then those judgments and those ideas you have about yourself will always distort your knowledge of who you are and your relationship to the world and to God. So what we're going to tell you is going to be challenging. It will be difficult. But that's good, because I know that all of you are truth seekers. You really are here to understand what life is about. You're not necessarily here only to extract security or pleasure or power or fame or virtue from the world to make yourself feel good or whatever. You really want to know the truth. That's why you're here. That's why consciousness of God has put you here. So there will be this conflict between what you hear and what you believe. And for Vedanta to work, once you've heard the whole teaching, don't criticize it, don't judge it until you've heard it. Then you need to, for this to work for you, then you need to what? You need to look at what you have heard, what you believe, what you think, in light of what you have heard. This first stage of Vedanta teaching is called Shravana, hearing, listening. You have to listen. And then you look at what you believe and think in light of what you have heard. And if what you believe and think doesn't correspond to what you've heard, then you have to drop it. In other words, you're not the boss, okay? The teaching is the boss. If you want freedom, if you just want to be, to gain a little more spiritual knowledge. There are people that come to these classes who aren't interested everyone's interested in freedom, but their basic interest is to get some spiritual knowledge to help them in their careers or their lives. They're not interested in freedom. They know that there is a spiritual component to life. Life coaches, psychologists, often these kind of people, helping people who want to help other people. They know that they need spiritual knowledge. So they'll come and this is very valuable spirit knowledge for helping people. The psychological aspect is incredibly sophisticated and powerful, psychological aspect of Vedanta. And they'll be interested in just taking from the teaching what they need to make their work. But that doesn't work if you want freedom. See, we're assuming that you want freedom. Freedom means what? Freedom from dependence on objects. Freedom means freedom from dependence on objects. There are two categories. Reality, existence, is one. It's non-dual. There are not two existences or three existences or five existences or infinite existences. There's only one existence. There's only one consciousness. And that one consciousness existence appears as a subject and objects. The subject is one, and the objects are many. So we have, and this is just a matter of experience. Just think about your own experience. You, consciousness, are present and aware. You exist, you're present and aware. And what is your life? What is experience or your life? It's how or what you relate to the objects that what? Reality presents to you. That's it. Same for everybody. No exceptions. It's just one of you, one conscious being. You're not two conscious beings. You're not 3, 4, 5, 10 conscious beings. You don't have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different existences. You exist and you're conscious. And what do you, we call that the self. You exist and you're conscious. And What do you experience? Objects. And all that life is what? A whole series of objects, presenting them to you, and you relating to those objects. Now, when we get started, at the very beginning, we need to have our terminology sorted out. Okay? This is very important. This you need to remember. You have to memorize this. The subject is consciousness, you. And the objects are apparently not you. Isn't that right? Don't you believe that the objects are different from you? Yeah, you do. Yeah, everybody thinks like that. They think, I'm here and the object is there, whatever the object is. Now, we have to analyze, we need to have a definition of objects, okay? Because there's a lot of objects that you might not think are objects. Okay? So you might be confused. You might have confused yourself with the objects. If you want freedom, you have to know the difference between the subject and the objects. You, consciousness, awareness, and the objects. That's called freedom. If you know the difference, you won't lean on or depend upon an object for happiness. If you know the difference, because the subject is full and complete and already happy, it's anandam, it's bliss, it's okay, it's fine. You're always okay. You do not need, if you know who you are, you do not need any object to make yourself happy. You're happy before you contact an object. You don't need it. But if you're confused about what the subject is and what an object is, then what? Then you're going to lean on the objects for happiness. You're going to depend upon things to make you happy. Everybody's doing this. Don't say, oh no, I'm enlightened. If you're free, there's no need to sit here and listen to this, unless you just like to listen to it, like I do. I like to think about it all the time, even though I'm quite free. An object is anything other than you, consciousness. Okay? That's a definition. You, consciousness, awareness, existence, existent conscious awareness, we can put it like that for now, is you. Not Joe or Sally or Pete or Uta or Manfred or Reinhardt or whatever your name is. That's not you. We'll talk about that person later, if you want to. Well, we will. We'll get around to that person. But we're not interested in that person, actually. You probably are very interested in that person that you think you are, but Vedanta is not very interested in that person, because it's not you. So that's why we don't talk about it too much. But we'll pretend that it's you, because you believe that that's you, that person you think you are. No, you're consciousness. You're only consciousness, present, always present, existent, awareness, consciousness. That's the subject. And you transact with objects, and object is anything other than you. I'm repeating for a purpose, to make sure you're clear about this. Because everything in this text, everything is built upon this basic distinction between the subject and the object. And we're going to try to determine whether that separation between the subject and object is an actual separation, or whether it's an imaginary separation. Okay. So that's the investigation. Now, what about your body? Is your body you, or is your body an object? The body. How many people think it's you? Think it's me? No? Nobody thinks it's, oh, then you guys are good. You mean you never identify with your body? Huh?
It's a dentist.
Not anymore.
Huh?
Not anymore.
Not any good for you. Yeah. But let me ask you this then: where are these glasses? If you think, well, they're in your hand, then you know what that means? That means you think you're your body. Huh? If you think these glasses are in my hand, then that means you think you are your body. Because these glasses are not in my hand. Unless you're the body. Why are you not the body? Why? There's a reason. Good, very simple, elegant, absolutely clear reason why you're not the body.
You're aware.
Yeah. The body, you're aware of it. The body is known to you. The body is an object known to me. So that means what? I can't be it. Doesn't it? I know, I can see you're having trouble with this right away, aren't you? Huh? Isn't it? Okay. What is it that makes this, what is it that turns this body into an object? Me, consciousness. I'm separate from the body, so that's how I know does the body know me? No. So the body is what? An object. It's a material object. But if I come up and slap your face, what will you say? He slapped my body? You won't say that, will you? And you're talking to your friend and he said, Ramji was very angry with me because I was so stupid I didn't know I was the self. So he slapped me he slapped my face. You won't say that, will you? You'll say, Ramji is a bad guru. He slapped me! Won't you? Huh? Sure you will. You will not say my body. I can't slap you, consciousness. It's not possible. But I can slap your body. And you can't slap your body either, because what? Your consciousness. You don't have any means to slap it. You don't have arms and legs and hands and feet and so forth and so on. So the body is an object known to you. That's the basic object. What about your emotions? I'm giving you a clue when I say your emotions. It's not you either, is it? But if somebody says nasty things, then you'll say what? She hurt my feelings. Or she'll say, she hurt me. If you say my feelings, then so what? But you won't tell somebody that she hurt my feelings and be upset, will you? Because you'll know that what? You can't be. You can't be hurt. Because what? Your feelings are an object known to you. But, Now, if you say, she hurt me or he hurt me when he said something bad, then you've got a problem, a self-knowledge problem. You've got the wrong I. You've got the self identified with a feeling. If you identify with a feeling, that means what? you're depending upon that feeling. You're not free of the feeling. But the self, you are always free. So you can see the problem we're getting into right now. The way I think about myself and the way I experience myself is very different from who I really am. What about your thoughts? Are thoughts objects or not? Yeah, thoughts are objects. But if somebody argues, you have a certain idea, and somebody argues with that, you become upset, don't you? You don't like that person. Because they what? They had a different idea from yours. Like the Muslims. They don't like our idea. And we don't like their idea. So we get all angry because the Muslims think like this, and they get all angry because we think differently. But so what? They're just thoughts. Islam is just a thought. Democracy, liberal democracy, is just a thought. Nobody ever saw a Muslim. All you saw was consciousness plus a body. That's all you ever see. You never see a Muslim. They're walking around, there's no sign on them, I'm a Muslim, unless they're wearing these outfits, funny outfits, or having a beard, but that doesn't even mean they're a Muslim. Or an American. If you say, I hate America, how am I going to feel bad? A lot of people, Europeans particularly, they like to look down on Americans. They think they're superior to Americans. But, and they're no, they do. Americans so this and so that, and blah, 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 and we're better, you know. But I never saw an American. I have no idea what an American is. Absolutely none. It's just, to me, it's just a word. I only see people. I see people, conscious beings, and their bodies. That's all I see. So if you say something bad about America, it doesn't, you won't get a reaction out of me because I know it's just an idea. You never saw an American either. You only saw, consciousness plus a body. That's all your experience ever is. But you get, but if you think you're a European or a mother or a father, a mother. Did you ever see a mother? No. Mother's a role. Father. Black, white. Are you black? Are you white? What? These are all concepts. I'm in love. No. It's a concept. You can't see it. You can't, all you see is what? Yourself, consciousness, and bodies. Physical objects, bodies. That's all you see. Because that's all there is in existence, is you, consciousness, and what? And objects. And the objects are all material. Your feelings are material. Your physical body's material. Your thoughts are material. Energy. They're just energy, thoughts. Material. They don't think. They're inert. So they can't be you. Get this very clear right at the beginning. If you can understand this, then this text is going to be very easy for you. If you can't understand this, it's going to be very difficult. We'll keep investigating in different ways to help you understand that you have nothing to do with this world, with your body, or your thoughts, or your feelings, or even what? Experiences. Let's take experiences. Are experiences you? No. But yet, when somebody asks you, who are you, what will you say? Oh, I'm Jim, I come from America, my mother this, my father that, I was born here, I went to school, I da-di-da-di-da-di-da, then I went to India, then blah, 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 I did. And what will you tell me? You'll tell me all your experiences. But does that, are your experiences you? Are you only the sum total of all your experiences? No. You're not. Experiences are objects. They're events that begin and end. They're material objects. I know it sounds weird, doesn't it? That experience is material. Experience is just what? Matter changing. And it begins and it ends. See, we're getting quite subtle now. The self, you are always what? Free of what you're experiencing at any time. Yet when something happens that you don't like, you get what? Emotional. But why are you getting emotional if something happens that you don't like? If experiences are just matter? If they're just objects? Why are you getting all worked up? And why do you get all happy when good experiences happen? Why do you do that? That's foolish, isn't it? What? Particularly since experience isn't under your control, is it? What happens to you isn't under your control at all, is it? It's not conscious and it's not under your control yet, right? Your whole life goes up when good things happen and down when bad things happen, doesn't it? And the good things and bad things aren't good things or bad things at all because experience is just material energy. The good things and bad things are thoughts you're what? Imposing upon experience, but the evaluations that you're making of experience that are causing your mood to go high or to go low. You're either excited and happy or you're depressed and angry. Because experience is not giving you what you want. You see how you're depending upon experience for your happiness? Everybody on their phones all the time. Trying to get information about what's happening. In other words, trying to get information about experience. So they'll know what to do. How to respond, how to react. Because you don't want bad things to happen. You only want good things to happen. You have no control over them. So you're always trying to figure out what's going on to make you move so that you avoid bad things and get good things. Yet bad and good things are what? Just objects. They don't mean anything. What's good for you is bad for somebody else. What's bad for somebody else is good for you. Which means what? Experience has nothing to do with you at all. It's just your interpretation of what happens is what? Causing the problem. The suffering. Suffering is depending upon objects for your happiness. And experiences are objects. Get this very clear. This takes the whole wind out of the spiritual world's sails, doesn't it? That means, the spiritual world, what are we all doing in the spiritual world? We're trying to get spiritual experiences, aren't we? We want deep, profound samadhis and satori's and insights and so forth. We want spiritual experiences. They're just what? Material objects. That's all. Subject to time. An object is limited. An object by the self, you are limitless. You have no limits. You are existence. Existence has no limits. And you are consciousness. It has no limits. But all objects are limited. This is another fact we need to know about the subject and the object. Limited what? They're limited in time, experiences. They're limited in space. They're limited in time. Aren't they? Isn't every experience begin and end? So, and it's material, and it isn't conscious, and it begins and it ends. Now, if I'm depending on a particular experience for my happiness, like, I need you to love me, okay? What happens when you stop loving me? What goes on in my mind? If I need you to love me and you don't love me, that, in other words, your love stops. You're not happy, are you? Huh? In fact, When you're expecting love from somebody else, what are you doing? You're always in a state of total anxiety, aren't you? Isn't it? When you have a love relationship, aren't you anxious all the time? Right. Because you're depending for that object, that person. People are objects too. Did you know that? People are, yeah, you probably know that. Because we treat people like objects, don't we? Huh? Objects are only there for our pleasure. They're not there for their pleasure. We don't care about them. We care about people for what? For what they do for us. Now when you depend upon a person for your happiness, for your love, you will expect them to love you, and they don't love you, and they're going to stop loving you. At some points they're not going to love you. Then what? What happens to your happiness? Bye-bye. Happiness goes. Because I depended upon what? That object to supply the happiness for me. Understand this. You can see where the challenge already in this Vedanta is, can't you? Because what is, if you follow this logic, it means what? I have to let go of all what? All my attachment to objects. But it's precisely my attachment to objects that's what? That is my life, that is my identity. And it's my attachment to objects that's producing this clinging, this suffering, this craving, and this fear. See? When I feel empty, when I feel empty and incomplete, I want an object, don't I? So that means what? The desire for an object means I'm suffering. And when I get the object, then I've got another problem, don't I? How am I going to keep that object? Because the objects are always changing, aren't they? So if an object gives me happiness now, it's not going to give me happiness later on. Either the object is changed, or what? Or my relationship to the object has changed. In other words, my need for the object has disappeared. If you like somebody and they fulfill your need and they make you happy for a while, and then you get bored with them because you know they're not that exciting or interesting, then what happens? You have to let go of the object. Then where does that put you? It puts you right back to where you began. You're lonely again. You need another object. You've got to look for another person, another situation, another baby, another dog, another cat, another job, another ex. You fill it in to make you happy. So we're just running from one object to another, expecting the objects to make us happy, and the objects can't make us happy because they're what? They're limited, totally limited. And is anybody satisfied with limited happiness? Are you satisfied with a little bit of happiness? No. See the problem? We have to lay out the problem. So, now, we're going to analyze experience a little more deeply, because there are actually not any objects out there. I know, you believe there are objects are out there. We're going to get into this now, little detail on this, to see if it's really possible to depend upon an object. If the object is there, then it's possible to depend upon it, isn't it? But what if the object isn't actually there? What if it just looks like the object is there, but it isn't really there? And then what? I'm living in a dream, aren't I? I'm deluded. I'm imagining that I'm in love with an object. An object doesn't necessarily mean a person, but it can be anything, a dog, a cat, a house, a job. You can depend upon or love an object. But but if the object's not actually there, then I'm going to have to reconsider my relationship to objects, aren't I? Now this teaching is an analysis of experience, I told you. And we're going to analyze how we experience objects. This is something you won't do on your own. This is why we need Vedanta. We're too busy, what? Chasing objects and reacting to the experiences we have in our relationship with objects to actually analyze what's going on when we're transacting with objects. We don't do it. Did your mother ever tell you how to analyze your experience? Did your father? Did they teach you in school? Did anybody ever tell you this? Nobody ever told you this. Yet it's absolutely essential for your happiness. I mean, I wish they'd teach this to kids in school. You can't really teach it to kids. You have to have a certain degree of maturity to actually even consider this idea. Because when you're very young, you're completely hypnotized by objects. You're so fascinated by objects that you don't even think about yourself, except what? Whether or not that object is making you happy or not. But you don't really dig into the nature of the experience of objects to see if what you're desiring or fearing is real, or whether it's just an appearance. Vedanta says that all the objects are appearances. They're not actually there. We have many, many ways to reveal this or show this to you. But it's going to be difficult. Okay, so just follow with me. Follow this logic. Okay, how are we doing here? Yeah, we can go through this. But we'll have a break in a few minutes. This is intense. Okay? And if you don't get it first time, it's okay. Don't worry. You can go back and go over it. And by the end of we got what, 5 days? Yeah. By Friday, maybe you'll be able to get this clearly. So don't feel anxious or upset if you don't get it. Okay? But we're going to prove to you that there are no objects outside. And if there are no objects outside, then it will be very difficult. If you understand and accept this logic, then what? Then it will be very difficult for you to attach yourself to an object. Because you only chase objects and fear objects because you think they're real. That's, isn't it? You don't go for a thing if you think it's not real, do you? No, you don't. You go for an objects because you think they're real. If you understood that they weren't real, real means permanent. Real means always present, not changing, and what? A source of endless happiness. That's what real is. Because there's only one thing that fits that definition, and that's you, consciousness, existence, awareness, bliss. It's the only there's only one object, which isn't an object. We'll call it an object. So if you only chase objects because you think they're real, and we've got to show you that objects are not real. They aren't actually out there. Here we go. Now, it's a fact. We've got to, and remember now, step by step, if you can't sign on to this logic, then this isn't going to work. So try to understand what we're saying, and I think you can. I think you won't have a trouble. But if you accept the first piece, you're going to accept the second piece, and if you accept the second piece, you're going to accept the third piece. And when you get to the end, maybe you don't want to go to the end. Maybe this will be very uncomfortable truth for you to accept. Huh? But if you're really interested in inquiry and the truth, then you're going to have to accept this logic, because it's irrefutable logic. It's logic that's based upon your own unexamined experience. We're not asking you to believe it. It's not intellectual. We're using logic to what? To show you something about yourself that you know, but you don't know. And when you hear it, you'll say, I know it. But before you hear it, you'll say, I don't know it. You'll say, I don't know that objects are not there, that they're not real. I don't know that objects are just appearances, objects. But you're going to end up saying, you're right. There's nothing out there. There's no objects there. There's only me, consciousness. Okay, so the first fact is this. It's a fact that we are conscious, aware, and aware. Is that right? Does anybody not conscious here? Raise your hand, all of you who are not conscious. Okay, good. We got that clear, all right? Nobody raised their hand. That's correct. I don't have to prove that to you, do I? That's obvious. And it's also a fact, okay, that consciousness, consciousness, comes in contact with 5 categories of objects. Oh, I don't have them here. I don't have this chart. What are those 5 categories of objects? Space, air, fire, water, and earth. It's not exactly the same classification of elements that you find in science, but it's a general classification. You experience space, don't you? Yeah. Space is an object known to you. This is room space. That's what? Outside space, etc., etc. This is what? This is book space. These are glasses space. They occupy space. Space is here. It's a matter of your experience. How do you experience space? Through sound. Each object, each material object, each of these 5 has a property, and you can relate yourself to space through sound. We'll see as we go. Now, and how do you contact these 5 objects? Through 5 senses, don't you? Consciousness can't contact them unless what? Unless there are senses. There are 5 knowledge-gathering senses because what? Because there are 5 material objects. See how you can see it's a setup. Huh? Somebody or something set this whole thing up. Does anybody have 6 senses? Does anybody have 9 senses? Does anybody only have 3 senses? No. Everybody only has 5 senses. Why? Because there's only 5 categories of material objects. Every object occupies space, has these 5 categories in it: air, fire, water, earth, and space. Space, air, fire, water, and earth. There's a progression in which they evolve. We'll talk about that as we go. So, and so we have these 5. We have eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and the skin. And each one contacts an object. The ears contact space through sound. The eyes the skin contacts air. That's how you know, that's how you feel. Skin is an instrument of knowledge that tells you what the temperature is in the room and how you're feeling. It's how you're sensing all the time the atmosphere. And fire, what? What's fire? Light and heat. Through the skin, we'll see, you'll see. The important point now is that there are 5 sense instruments and there's 5 objects, sense objects. Okay? 5 objects, air, fire, water, earth, and ether, and 5 sense instruments. And each instrument perceives the properties of an object. Each object gives off a property, and what the senses perceive the properties of the objects. Okay? The objects don't come into the senses. The objects produce stimuli, vibrations, little stimuli, 5 different types of stimuli, and those what? The senses read those stimuli. Okay? And what do? They integrate all of those 5 experiences. There's 5 different experiences. They integrate them into what? One experience. Now, where is this? So where is the object now? Where are the objects now? Are the objects experienced outside of your body somewhere? That's what it looks like, doesn't it? It looks like I'm over here, and to me, it looks like you're over there. But they're not, are they? Where are they? The objects, what? Appear at the sense organ level as vibrations, as stimuli, as energy. 5 different kinds of energy. And then what? At the mental level, at the subjective level, what? They appear as whatever I'm experiencing, life. Do you actually look at your own experience? Do you actually go out to experience this chart? Do you actually leave consciousness, leave yourself, and then come over here and experience the chart? Are you experiencing the chart here? Come on. I know it looks like it, doesn't it? No, you're not. You're experiencing the chart where? Here. In your mind. In that part of consciousness called the mind, that's your primary instrument for experience. Consciousness is not experiencing anything but itself. When you subtract your mind and the material world, you're just happy all the time because you're just experiencing yourself, and yourself is like totally complete and whole, and its nature is anandam or bliss. So you don't go anywhere. But for consciousness to experience an object, it needs an instrument, and that instrument is my mind. A subtle body, it's called a subtle body. And what happens there? The object appears as a thought experience in my mind, doesn't it? Everyone's staying exactly where they are, yet you're experiencing me, aren't you? You don't have to move over here and come close to the object me to see me, do you? I'm putting out energy, and that energy is going through your eyes, through your ears, through your eyes, particularly your ears and your eyes. You're seeing me with your eyes, and you're hearing me with your ears, and what? And you're experiencing me where? In your mind. Isn't it? Remember, I know this is very difficult. I can see a lot of question marks on foreheads. Huh? How difficult this is, because that's not what I think at all, is it? I think James is over here and I'm over there. Right? That's how it feels. Don't trust your feelings here. Don't trust your experience. Life is not the way you think it is. You're not experiencing life the way you think you're experiencing life, the way you feel it is. You feel that I'm here and you're there. I feel that you're over there and that I'm over here, but I know very well what? That you're not over there and that I'm not over here. I feel exactly what you're feeling, but I don't believe my feelings. Because my feelings are wrong. My feelings are my feelings, and I just trust them without thinking about them, don't I? Don't you just trust your feelings? Isn't it all about how you feel, what you're experiencing? You don't question what you're experiencing, do you? If it feels bad, you think that's the truth. If it feels good, you think that's the truth. But you can't, But you're actually not experiencing objects outside yourself. You're experiencing objects here in your subtle body, in your mind, in your heart. You could call it your heart if you were thinking of it from a feeling level, or your mind if you're looking at it from a thinking level. The feelings, the thoughts and the feelings are all in the subtle body, and the subtle body is your primary instrument for experience. Objects what? Send out stimuli which the senses read, and they what? They bring together all of those 5 basic bits of information from the 5 senses, and they turn it into one thought experience. Consciousness plus a thought of an object is your experience. Consciousness minus a thought is consciousness. You're only ever experiencing a thought. You're never experiencing anything out there. Like when you say my wife or my husband. You think you have a wife or a husband, don't you? Or a child or a dog or a cat or a job or any object. You'll say that, won't you? Do you have a wife when you're not thinking of your wife or your husband? Come on. No. Huh? Where's your wife when you're not thinking of your wife? Where's your husband when you're not thinking of him? They're not there. You have to later on, after that thought is over, you have to imagine that you have a wife or husband somewhere. But if the husband and wife is not there, it is not present as a thought, it's not there. Here and now, in the present moment, you're only experiencing one thought, whatever it is. And all the other thoughts you're not experiencing, all the other objects you're not experiencing. This is how consciousness works. This is how experience works. The information appears in my subtle body, in my mind, or heart, however you want to call it, whatever you want to call it. And I experience it as a thought, as a knowledge. Wife knowledge, dog knowledge, cat knowledge, tree knowledge, whatever. Any object. And when the thoughts change, that thought that I had just a minute ago is no longer present. I have a new experience, don't I? In other words, whatever the next thought is, I experience that, and that becomes my experience. No, No, this is radical. But can you argue with it? If experience was actually taking place outside, then everybody, in other words, if the objects were actually generating the experience, then everybody would experience the object the same, wouldn't they? But everybody experiences and objects differently, don't they? There is no way to say what is actually happening outside because nothing is actually happening outside. Everything is only happening here when what? I interpret the experiences that what? The thoughts that appear in me, in consciousness, in my primary instrument. My primary instrument is an object that what? Produces experience for me. So the world is not telling me what's happening. I'm interpreting the world not on the basis of what the world is, because the world is value neutral. The objects are not good or bad. The objects are just material objects. They don't have any self-nature. There's no self-nature in them. They're purely appearances that are interpreted by me according to what? According to my likes and dislikes, my condition. Now tell me this. How far are you from your thoughts, from your experience? How far away? Is there a gap? Is there a space? Can you find one? The answer is there's no gap, isn't it? If there's between you, consciousness, and your experience, where's the gap? The objects are what? Are just your mind, your experiencing instrument, and what? And your experiencing instrument is not different from you. Isn't that correct? Do you have to experience something? Do you have to go and check out from a storeroom, check out an instrument so you can experience the world? Say, well, no, I don't want to experience the world today. I'm going to put my experiencing instrument back. Give it back to the government or the ashram or to wherever it is. God. I'll give it back to God. God gave me the experiencing instrument, but I don't want to experience today, so I'm going to take my experiencing instrument, my mind, I'm going to give it back. So that because I'm tired of experience. I don't want to experience anything. I'm so fed up. It's going up and down and everything. I'll give it back. Can you do that? Why not? Because it's non-separate from you. It's a power in you, consciousness, awareness, that what? Generates objects. In other words, the objects aren't generating experience. What? Consciousness is generating the experience. The experiences are all generated from within, not from without. But it looks like what? It looks like it looks like the world of objects outside is causing me to experience things. But the objects aren't the cause of consciousness. Consciousness, you, is the cause of all the objects.